We're back at it again. Beloved book review. Mr. Campbell, you're my beloved favorite student. You get the gist, right? This book is beloved by Toni Morrison, one of the goats. It entails a story of Setha, who was a formerly enslaved person from slavery to freedom, right? And everything in between, which includes the loss of her children, trying to find love, and the consequences that entail, right? I give this book a rating of 4, and I'm gonna go into a summary of three distinct parts of the book. First part, we're introduced to 4 characters: Setha, Denver, Baby Suggs, and Paul D. Now, Setha is the main character. Denver is her daughter. Baby Suggs is Setha's mother-in-law, who is deceased at present day. And Paul D, who is Setha's love interest throughout the book. They all live at this place called 124, who is haunted by Setha's child that died, that we end up finding out was murdered by Setha in order to prevent them from being slaves, right? And Paul D comes into the picture, and her daughter Denver doesn't like him there. She's like, no, I don't want him there. Out, right? She doesn't like him, right? They end up having a good conversation, and Paul D ends up saying, I'll hold you down, right? I'll keep you safe. Do what you need to do. Go love your child. I'll be here to keep you up, right? They end up going to a carnival. They all have fun. Rekindle. Good move, right? So then, after that happens, they come back from the carnival, and they end up seeing this girl at 124 by a tree, right? She's like passed out. She comes from a river, right? She's passed out. They end up nursing her bath help, and they end up finding out her name is Beloved. Title of the book, right? So this is interesting because Beloved was inscribed on a tombstone of Setha's dead child that she killed, right? Who previously haunted 124, right? And at this moment, Paul D becomes uneasy. He's like, what in the world, right? So he presses Beloved when she's like, fully conscious. And at this time, Beloved and Setha, they're tight. They got attachment to each other, right? So Paul D presses her, and he's like, and Setha gets mad, right? And they end up, having this conversation, and then Paul D ends up telling Setha about what happened to her previous husband, whose name is Hale, right? Hale saw everything, all the bad stuff that happened to her at the plantation, and everything that ensued with the owner of the plantation, who was named School Teacher. Now, School Teacher was a bad person. He did bad things to Setha. He took her milk and everything, and Hale witnessed all this but couldn't fathom the idea, so he went insane, and he couldn't do anything, right? And Paul D tries to reason with Setha about how this makes sense and everything, but Setha's mad, right? And so Setha goes and goes to this place called the clearing to figure out her stuff, right? And she calls upon and starts praying to Baby Suggs. Now during this moment, Setha starts to feel choked, right? So Denver and Beloved go up to her and try to right? So then they end up finding out. Denver ends up accusing Beloved of choking her, and Beloved's like, nah, I didn't do it, even though she did, right? So she gets angry and she dips, right? And throughout this, but time goes on, Paul D ends up telling Setha that he wants a kid, right? Setha was weird about it, and then she rejected him. And at this moment, Beloved was like, nah, I don't like him, and she tries to convince Denver to get him out of there, right? She's like, nah, I don't want him here. Try to drive him away, right? And they all become weary of Denver and Paul D become weary of Beloved. Now, throughout this, there's flashbacks of what Setha did to her children, because she ended up trying to kill her 4 children, which is Bugler, Howard, Denver, and Beloved, who was called barely crawling at the time. And she ended up trying to kill him because she didn't want them to become slaves, right? So then Paul D finds this out and he dips. He's like, I don't want no part of that. That's crazy, right? You crazy as hell, right? So he dips. He's like, I don't want no part of that, right? And this is the end of part 1. Now, part 2 begins with Setha trying to, move on from Paul D. So she takes her children, 2 girls, doing something fun, right? And this brings back memories of Sweet Home and everything all about that. And then the next couple chapters are inner monologues from Setha, Beloved, and Denver. Setha's monologue is about how her love has caused her to do certain things for her children, and those bad things and those good things, right? Denver's inner monologue is her fear for her mother and beloved, and wishing or thinking that what if she ran away like Howard and Bugler, right? And beloved's inner monologue is memories that are fragmented because beloved's memories are not all there because she did die as a child, and like some wishes that she wants. Now, Setha and beloved, they had a bonding moment, but Denver not so much after those monologues. Now, this leads up to the final part of the book, where Paul D is trying to figure himself out because he was down bad, right? And beloved ends up being a bad individual who drains the life of Setha. Now Denver tries to help Setha by getting a job, and then Denver ends up spreading the word that Setha's in a bad place, right? Because of reincarnated beloved, right? So the whole town hears, and then about 30 people, 40 people, a whole bunch of people, they go to 124 and try to exorcise beloved. Now Setha comes out and tries to whack one of the people, thinking that it was school teacher, right? And during this moment, beloved dips, and they all forget about beloved. Now that's how the story ends, right? So now I'm going to explain 3 parts of the book, one from each section of the book. From section 1, I chose to talk about the segment that I explained in the summary about how the dialogue between Setha, Denver, and Paul D happened when Denver didn't want Paul D to be in Setha and Denver's lives at the beginning of the book. Now, during this dialogue, Setha and Paul D end up talking to each other after Denver cussed out Paul D, right? And they end up talking to each other, and they're like, I can hold you, like Paul D to Setha, I can hold you down, you can love your child, and I will be here for you. And Setha becomes weary, and then Paul D was like, will you just give me a chance, and I can try to make this better. And he's like, how about this, we go to a carnival, and I pay, and I do things for y'all, so y'all can see that I'm a good person, right? And I gave this part a 4 rating. Now, I gave this part a 4 rating because it relates to me, because my parents are divorced, and I had to experience that as a very, very young child, right? And looking back at it, and I seeing what could have been throughout this section, like if my parents made amends, and seeing what could have been with me and my sister, right? It piques my curiosity, and it makes me reminisce on what life was, and how bad it was, and how good it was, and everything in between. So just it kind of made me emotional when I was reading it at the first start. So good props, right? So that's the first part. Second part, which is in part 2, I ended up choosing the monologue that Denver had, and how she ponders the thoughts of what beloved, how she fears beloved, and the ponders thoughts of what her mother does, and how she fears her mother, that her mother can come back and do, those atrocities that she did to her children on Denver, right? And I give this part a 5 because it's extremely intriguing, thinking about, as a child, thinking that your mother can kill you. It's just crazy to think about. And, my inner thought was like, why would someone think about like that? But then you got to realize that it is bad, right? And then in part 3, I chose literally the last paragraph, where everybody forgets beloved. Now, and they don't bring it up, they don't tell stories. She fades in the wind and all that. Now, for me personally, I gave this a 3. And for me, it just didn't shut the book completely. It was all for nothing. I didn't like it, and it just left a sour taste in my mouth. So that's why I gave it a 3. Now, that right there is my book review of Beloved. Real quick, short, simple, sweet. Go check it out for yourself. Come to this channel, subscribe, do what you gotta do. Mr. Campbell, I love you. Peace out. Homie, you the homie.